Peter ComboFiend Rosas for joining us here on launch day. Peter, congratulations, man. How does it feel?
Oh man, it feels great. It's like ever since I was a little kid playing Street Fighter, I was just like, man, this game is great, and to go from, being a player to being a guy who actually worked on the game and designing what people are playing, it's a pretty great feeling.
I feel like I'm in that rarefied air to a degree. A kid who played a ton of Street Fighter with his brothers as a kid on Super Nintendo. I had the art books, and to now be on a show where I get to talk to people like you about it means a lot. I can't imagine how much it must feel to actually have worked on the game. I mean, you are a part of kicking off this new era. How does that feel? Has it sunk in that it's not just a new Street Fighter V game, but this new esports era? And I want to talk about that more after we get your answer here.
Uh, you know, uh, in terms of sinking in, it's funny because with the CPT, we did that last year, and we're constantly improving on it. And the year before that, so for us, or for me rather, I should say, it's kind of already been happening. It's been
Mhm.
progressing, but I mean, this year's tour is just that much more grand. So it would be exciting to see. But kicking it off with a brand new title, that's what I'm actually really, really excited about. And I mean, that it has sunk in because I've actually been anticipating it, but I just really want to see what happens. I want to see how the competitive landscape changes in the next year. Like this is really exciting.
Peter, I have a couple of CPT questions for you, but let's start off with this event that we saw last night with Lupe Fiasco versus Daigo. A lot of people were saying, why is this even a thing? Why would anybody care to watch this? Why would you drag Daigo over here for this? Uh, it ended up being an extremely entertaining exhibition, more so than I think a lot of people expected. You were there. You were even providing support, swapping out fight sticks. What did you think of that event?
I mean, I loved it. Like people think a lot of people that Lupe doesn't really know how to play. Some of his tweets were like, "Oh, working on my light kick drills" or something like that, and people were like, "Light kick drills? What is that?" A lot of the hardcore players were just confused by such wordage. But Lupe actually showed up really early yesterday to the event, and he said, "I really want to practice. I've never played five." But I've watched videos. I've been doing my research. I know how to play Street Fighter. I just don't know how to play Five specifically. So, I mean, that just showing up early and having that level of dedication already showed me that Lupe was actually taking this quite seriously. And he was like, "Man, people think I'm not good. They think I don't know how to play. Like I know how to play. It's just I don't know what's going on in Five." Because I never touched it. So I sat down with him, trained him, and it was exciting to see, man. That guy, he uh, he surprised me. I told him, "You're gonna surprise everybody, actually, because of your level of competency." And he was just saying that, he's used to the more old school Street Fighters, because he's not a fan of like really long combos. But otherwise, I mean, he came out to play. He did his job. Daigo also hasn't really been playing five, so it was kind of like his first day too. So you may have noticed during the video or during the match, he kind of missed some meaties and other things like that.
I think that's open to interpretation whether he was sandbagging or not. I think a lot of people find it hard to believe that Daigo would lose this match. He was
Hmm.
smiling a lot. It was a fun event. I think, okay, obviously we won't know unless we ask the man. And if I'm not mistaken, the official statement is that no, he did not sandbag. But regardless, the idea that Lupe Fiasco won and he beat Daigo,
Yeah.
what do you think a moment like that means to a larger audience outside of the FGC, if at all?
I mean, I think it just speaks to the accessibility of Street Fighter Five. I mean, Daigo was landing some strong combos, but Lupe was also tacking on a lot of damage really quickly as well. Um, it just shows that anyone could really become a champion in this game if they tried.
All right, Peter, Street Fighter V is launched. Let me congratulate you again on that achievement.
Thanks.
What's the mood like at HQ over there?
I mean, I haven't been to the office yet, but like last night. all of us were extremely happy because the game, I think, launched at midnight last night
Hmm.
slash 9 p.m. Pacific time.
Hmm.
And I mean, we were just all in a state of euphoria. You know, we were like, finally, this game, we've had a long campaign. We know that everybody's wanted the game in their hands. A lot of the community is looking forward to it. We're looking forward to seeing what they come up with and how the game progresses over the course of this year. So it was just an exciting time for all of us. And I keep using the word exciting quite a bit.
In my mind, I was imagining like, on election night when you're staying up and watching the polls or the numbers come in, were you guys like watching the streams and seeing what kind of stuff was being, I was watching PR Rog. I was watching a couple other streams. What were you guys doing? Aside from, having fun with Lupe Fiasco.
All of our attention was glued to that. I mean,
Okay.
if other players were playing, I mean, more power to them. But we had exhibitions at the event, so players came out to that. There was
Hmm.
also setups. So after the Lupe versus Daigo match, I was just mingling with those who showed up, just talking some Street Fighter 5 theory and things like that. And it was just fun to see the players who came out see their passion. And then there's guys like Seth who were there,
Hmm.
and other notables, and it was just fun chatting with them about just catching up, really.
So, Peter, the game is launched, as we've mentioned several times already. Is the hard work over or is the hard work just beginning?
We're just shifting focus now. I mean, we go from phase one to phase two. So phase one is creating the game.
Hmm.
Uh, phase two now is seeing what the community thinks about it, following the game's progression, because we are going to rebalance the game every year,
Hmm.
but we don't plan to do that until around after Capcom Cup. So now comes a time where we watch and see what type of hardships players experience and what it is that may be hard for them to fight, or what it is that they might be abusing, or anything like that, and just really monitoring the competitive
Hmm.
landscape. So that's where we are with that. And then on top of that, we also have characters who are going to be coming out throughout the year, the DLC characters. So it's still there's still a lot to do. It's
Plenty of
not
work left.
Yeah, it's not like it's like, oh, here you go, a day one product. Since we shifted our focus to a service-based model, it's just constant.
You've already alluded to three of the things I want to talk about. First of all is CPT. And you
Hmm.
mentioned earlier, you've been doing it. But this year, for some reason, with the announcement of the regions, it really feels like you guys are turning that key on the, esportsification of it, which is one of my favorite words, with respects to, you had the Asia Pro Tour and then the Capcom Pro Tour structure. I mean, Street Fighter is uniquely positioned for this. How does it feel turning that key? Does it feel any different? Like, okay, now we're doing it for real. This is what we've been working for.
Well, I mean, we've always felt that we were doing it for real. Last year's structure, we thought, how do we improve upon this? Because it's pretty grand, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, we ended up with an amazing Capcom Cup finals. The players who made it were all world class, and I don't think anyone could have disagreed with how the whole event shook out, or the tour, I should say, shook out. But what we noticed was, there was a lot of room for representation, and South America is one of those countries that hasn't been represented. So what we wanted to do was then with Street Fighter V give regions a true chance to shine. And so we made some adjustments, and we're really excited to see, honestly, who makes it to the Capcom Cup this year with so many different ways in, and so many ways to grab points. It's going to be pretty wild to see who ends up in the final 32.
I guess that's what I mean when I say that it's for real this year. Is that you're really inciting all these regions to fight amongst themselves and then to prep to fight amongst everybody else. It's very exciting. I'm very excited about that. My question to you is this: what region do you think will come out on top?
I mean, I couldn't tell you. Like, I mean, so North America is strong in Street Fighter. I mean, Asia's extremely strong in Street Fighter, and Europe is really strong in Street Fighter. I think South America has hidden weapons that people aren't aware of. So they're definitely going to make themselves known this year, which is really exciting. Uh, But the thing about Street Fighter V is that it's not a system heavy game. So it really goes down to the fundamentals. And in every region, there's at least one player that's extremely strong at fundamentals. I think with four, there was a lot of system emphasis, and if you could really use the system to your advantage, then you'd win. But if you were strong at fundamentals, not so much. So with five, kind of taking it back to the basics and being more concentrated on fundamentals, it really kind of throws everything into the air in regards to who will win.
You know, so when the Capcom Pro Tour first kicked off, a lot of people thought if you put Capcom Cup at the end of the year, or it'll compete with the tournaments. You guys implemented the tournaments and gave Evo a place of significance. Now we've added more tournaments that are not part of the traditional tournament season with the regionals. Am I correct in saying that so far?
Yeah.
What do you think, if anything, will change with the landscape as we go forward? Will the grassroots tournaments always have a home in the Capcom Pro Tour?
Definitely. I mean, look, we can't have the tour without grassroots tournaments. They're pretty much a staple of the tour, and it's those grassroots tournaments that bring out the players from those regions. And that's why what we tried to do was really incentivize people to go to these grassroots events by creating a regional final so that they have something to aspire to. So if you win that grassroots tournament, you'll go on to this regional final. And by doing that, like, we really feel that more players will show up, and they'll come out to support the grassroots events, which are, for us, a necessity for the tour.
Now, Peter, talking about the game, there's something that has been mentioned a lot, and it was one of the selling points, and it was one of the first things you guys said, and I remember it was received very well when it was first announced, which is that everything is free if you just play the game diligently. As far as game-changing features, such as new characters. Again, that's been mentioned a lot, but I think the significance of that hasn't been fully realized. My first question is, how do you convince a company like Capcom to go for that?
Sorry, you kind of got cut up there.
So the question is that the characters are going to be free if you just play the game diligently.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're available if you pay for them,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people will not pay for them because they're going to play the game and get them that way.
Mm-hmm.
How do you convince a company like Capcom to go for that, where a couple of games ago, and I'll bring up Street Fighter Cross Tekken, that was a point of contention? Is it just because that lesson was learned? But still, the question remains, how do you convince a company, yeah, we could make you more money if we charged, but let's not do that? Maybe you can educate me on how that works.
Well, the idea is to reward players for playing Street Fighter V. What we want is we want people to constantly play, enjoy themselves, and not many people are. I mean, sorry, not many, but there are people who aren't able to buy DLC characters when they come out. So the idea here is that there are those who can and there are those who can't, but that shouldn't put them at a disadvantage, especially when we're making this the competitive game for our Pro Tour. So by just stating it that way, making sure that no players are left at any type of disadvantage, it was a pretty easy sell.
So that to me says that the Capcom Pro Tour aspect of the whole Street Fighter V project is extremely relevant. It's not, obviously, I'm talking to ComboFiend, a guy who comes from a storied history in the FGC, but it really is that important to the team at Capcom.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen the trailer that we've shown on TV,
I'm glad you mentioned that.
We show the competitive scene quite a bit. I mean, they're extremely important to us, and the Pro Tour is extremely important to us as well. And for us to ensure that all players are able to be on a level playing field, we had to make those type of concessions.
Peter, you mentioned it, and you said that it's good, it's important to the team. But to you personally, how do you feel when you see that commercial that showcases the FGC and all of that hype and excitement that we've all grown to know and love?
I mean, it's like really funny because when I watch that, I think, man, I've been at these events for like over 15 years, you know? And it's like people who don't know about it are seeing what that passion is. And, you know, for some of the people who may think, oh, you know, video games aren't esports, you know, like, whoa, or sorry, aren't sports.
Hmm.
Esports is not sports. Like, what is that? They don't see the passion behind the people who attend the event. They don't even know about people who attend the events. They probably think all of this stuff takes place online or something. So for them to see that in the commercial, it lets them say, hey, there is a community and there's a lot of drive behind that. And you see it reflected through the people in the commercials.
The characters and how they're going to roll out. Do you think that'll have an effect? Obviously, it will on the tournament season. And how do you guys plan on dealing with that?
Well, all the characters have been like vigorously tested,
Hmm.
uh, or rather, the ones that have been, or the ones who are coming out. So, like Alex, right? Like he's the first character to come out, so he was just completed like very recently, and we've been testing him though quite thoroughly to make sure he's not OP or anything like that. Uh, so we're doing that for all the characters. You know, we're also still building out the other guys, but we're making sure that none of these guys that are introduced later on inherently just have an advantage or something like that. We're making sure all their hit boxes and hurt boxes look great, their frame data makes sense, and they bring something new to the table that'll be fun to fight and interesting for players who are used to the core 16. We think that at the end of the day, though, you know, a week is enough time for players to get used to the character and for them to be able to fight it. I mean, in this game, you learn what characters can do really, really quickly, and then it becomes more about what does a player do with the tools given to them versus what kind of exploits the character has.
You know, you guys have been obviously very vocal about taking cues from the traditional or more established esports titles like League of Legends. Um, League of Legends doesn't play competitively on any new patch for at least 3 weeks. You're saying that's not something you guys are gonna do. You're gonna just let it rock.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it doesn't make sense to if a character drops on like I don't know a Thursday or something, and then you know to have that character be usable in a tournament on Friday, like that doesn't make any sense because nobody knows what that character is doing. But I feel like with the speed at which people learn characters and create content for characters and you know with all the forums and places that people communicate about character strategies and such, I feel like a week is definitely enough time because you know once a new character drops, people will concentrate on that character. What does this character do? What is this character about? And then you know they won't be caught off guard by anything that may happen.
Peter, a while ago, or not too long ago, we had the announcements of the official Evo lineup, and a lot of people were initially upset or surprised that Street Fighter 4 was not in that lineup.
Hmm.
Um, Perhaps those same people are saying Street Fighter 4 who? Now that Street Fighter 5 has come out and we're seeing so much cool stuff come out of it, how did you feel about that announcement? Did you think it was necessary, or what can you tell us?
I mean, it made sense. Like when you look at other titles, you'll notice that there may not be a. Sorry, let me backtrack. Evil's trying to bring in the most number of people possible. The people who play Street Fighter 4 are the same people who play Street Fighter 5.
Mhm.
For them, logistically, it could be a nightmare to have Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5 and, you know, legacy controller issues and such. All those things could really hurt their logistics. So I understand that decision being made. What they want is they want a lot of people to show up and they want them to enjoy themselves and have the best tournament experience possible. So, you know, cuts had to be made. They have limited resources. So, you know, it was just a decision that had to be made.
So, last two questions for you, Peter, and then I'll let you go. Are you going to miss Street Fighter 4?
Me personally,
Mm-hmm.
yes and no. Yes, because I think that you know there's some really complex combos in there, and you know it was rather entertaining to play. But no, because I kind of didn't like where the game went towards the end. You know, where people were just kind of using all 99 seconds, and every match was like extremely slow,
Mm-hmm.
slow paced. It was just always like these small bursts, and then you would have a lot of nothing for a long time. I don't. I felt like that's where the game was headed, and it was going to stay. And to have somebody try to break out of that mold would kind of just set them up for disaster. So I think everybody was adopting that as the way to play. And I don't know, for me as a spectator, it was becoming a little lackluster. So
So then let's talk Street Fighter V. What character should we all be playing?
whoever you want. I mean, like the way the game is now, I feel like all the characters have a fighting chance. So it's the perfect time to explore who you want to use.
All right, Peter. Well, thank you so much for your time. Again, congratulations on launching Street Fighter V.